All right, today's FRQ focuses on the 2019 StepTracker FRQ. I've got to make this class, and I'm going to keep this short and sweet because, well, I've seen this before, and two, I'm going to try to see if I can blast out 6 FRQs before the end of the night. So with that said, this question involves the implementation of a fitness tracking system that is represented by the StepTracker class. All right, you can already tell if I scroll down, that's what I'm going to have to write. I'm going to have to create a StepTracker class. So I'm going to say public class, and I'm going to say StepTracker. And that, along with the constructor, is usually going to go ahead and give me my first couple points. Now, I know that class is going to consist of 3 major things. Instance variables, it's going to consist of instance variables, it's going to consist of, you know what? I wonder if I can make my life a little bit easier. And actually, instead of writing this on a Word doc, let's go ahead and make this in a new code file. Woohoo! Alright, hopefully that will get rid of the random editing that let's do here. Okay, and also I can make this a little bit nicer here, and I can do a little split screen. So let's have the problem here in one side. And let's see if I can get the editor in the other side. Yes, this is nice. Okay. All right, so here I know that a class is going to consist of 3 things. It's going to consist of my instance variable, it's going to consist of my constructors, and it's also going to consist of my methods. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through and I am going to, I know I'm going to need a constructor. And if I look through here, even without like reading this part right here, if I look through here, it's going to give me an example of what my constructor, call to my constructor is going to look like. Notice how I know this is the constructor because it has it's using the same name as the class, right? And it's taking in an integer as a input. So let's say I didn't even know what that integer represents. I could still get my first 1 or 2 points here by just saying like public, not class, StepTracker int, and then let's say this int, let's just call it, well, it does tell me days with at least 10,000 steps, so it does represent steps, but let's say I didn't know what it was. Let's say I just called it X. It would be a very bad variable name, but it would at least get me my first point, right? The AP exam is not really about efficiency, it's more about does it work, okay? So there we go. So now I get 2 points just for writing my class and my constructor. And now it's kind of giving me some ideas here, because if I've got this instance variable, or if I've got this parameter called steps, that means that I'm probably going to have an instance variable called steps. And so I can say private, I can say int, and I can say steps. Great. So, sorry, it's not probably I'm going to have an instance variable called steps. Like, I'm going to have an instance variable that represents the number of steps. So I'm going to say this dot steps get steps, because if I have a parameter that's the same name of an instance variable, I have to put this in front of it so that the program knows that I'm referring to the instance variable being set to the value of the parameter here, okay? Now, so now I've already tried to do, and actually I can even go through and I can do other things as well without even understanding one bit what this problem is asking me to do. I can go ahead and start writing the headers of my methods, which will usually get me some other points here. I see another method called active days that's using this StepTracker object. So I know that this is another method within the class. So I could say like active days, okay? And it looks like it returns an integer. So I could say public int active days, and I know it's not a static method because it's using this object here. Okay, so does it take any inputs? No parameters, no arguments, so then yeah, I'm good. Okay, so here, without even having read one bit of the description except for like this first sentence, I'm already starting to be able to put things 2 and 2 together. Okay, I see there's another method called average steps, and it returns a double. Again, I don't know what that is about. I have no idea what this, well, I could assume that I know what this is about, but if this is my first time, without even knowing what this problem is asking for, I could go ahead and start doing major things. Here, I made a little spelling error. If you make a little spelling error and there's no ambiguity with what what that spelling error is for, you're not going to get a point off on the FRQ, so don't be too worried about that here. So, and then let's see if there's any other methods. There's active days, I did that. Oh, add daily steps, okay. Nothing gets returned here, so I can tell that that's going to be a void method, add daily steps. And it takes in an integer, and I don't know what that integer represents. Let's see if I can try to figure out, just so I can give a good variable name here for the sake of you all. No day had at least, oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. Add daily steps. This is too few steps for the day to be considered active. So it seems like this has to be do with the number of steps. But let's say I read that and I had no idea. Again, I could call it like X or something, which again is not good programming practice, but it will help you get the point on the AP exam. Okay, all right. So, so two different skill sets here: good programming and what's gonna get you points on the AP exam. Okay, right. Active days, average steps, add daily steps. Okay, and I'm gonna try to be careful as I'm going through and doing this because, yeah, this is where a lot of my points are gonna come from. Just doing this stuff right here. Okay. And I can go ahead and follow my trick here. Let's say I have no idea what this is supposed to do. I'm going to just say double result gets 0.0. I'm going to say return result. Done. And this, I know it's supposed to return an integer, so I'm going to say int result. This is my little trick here to make sure I get points. I'm going to say return result. Yes. Good, 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 good. And this one is a void method, so there's nothing that I need to return here. Good. And constructors don't have a return value. I mean, they technically return the object, but we don't return within a constructor. Now, okay, so here I've already gone through and done enough to get like maybe about 3 points here, and that's again without even reading the instructions. So like this table is really, really helpful as you're going through. Okay, so all right, the StepTracker class provides a constructor in the following methods. Add daily steps. Boom, did that, which accumulates information about steps in readings taken once per day. Okay. Okay, so once per day, it seems like we're adding to the daily steps. Active days, which returns the number of active days. Okay. Right. That kind of indicates to me, if it's returning the number of active days, that means that somewhere we were keeping track of the number of active days. So that's probably going to be another instance variable, private int active days. Okay. Okay, and right, and this dot active days. I'm gonna have to give that a value in the constructor. I'm not gonna change this because this already told me that I'm only taking one value, so that means I only need one parameter. Well, I guess when we first create an object, it makes sense to start this off as 0 because no stepping has been done. Okay, all right. So then average steps, which returns the average number of steps per day, calculated by dividing the total number of steps taken by the number of days tracked. Okay, so average steps. All right. Seems like, okay, says returns the average number of steps per day calculated by dividing the total number of steps taken by the number of days tracked. Okay, I feel like maybe this could be wrong, but I feel like then maybe my result is just like, if I update my result, and I could do this all in one line of code, literally, as somebody might be like, again, Miss Ellis, you could have done this in one line of code, but you know, I'm just doing my thing here. This is another way that you could do it here. We're just breaking it down step by step. I initialize my variable. Oh, I knew something wasn't spelled right. Right, so what if I did steps, because I have a variable called steps, divided by dividing the total number of steps taken by the number of days tracked. Okay, hold on. I think I'm realizing here, right, that there's two different types of days, right? There's like a normal day, because some like, okay, so maybe there's days where like you're active, you're doing your thing, you're having a great day, you're jump roping, you're swimming, whatever. But then there also might be those couch potato days, and everybody has those couch potato days. So I'm gonna go ahead and create another one called days, right? You've got your active days, and then you've got your just days in general. Okay. So, all right, so if I take the total number of steps divided by the number of days, this tells me my average steps. Cool. Now, I already have seen the solution for this, and I've done this before. One thing that is like classic, is this. There's always something that you don't think about, right? And when we look at it, right, this dot days, the days instance variable, when the object is first created, it starts off as 0. So if I create a StepTracker object and like immediately call average steps, then it's going to be a value of 0. So if I do steps, which is 0, divided by 0, we get this like divide by 0 error, which is not what we want. So we're going to need some sort of if statement to guard this expression here. Sometimes you'll see that on the AP exam rubrics, right? So I'm going to say if days equals 0, then it makes sense that there are no average steps. We can just say return 0. Oops, that is not a double. Well, I think that would still work because we can store an integer and a double, but we can't store a double and an integer. Okay, so we can use an integer in place of a double, but we can't use a double in place of an integer. But let's just be consistent, right? So if the number of days is equal to 0, otherwise we can go ahead and we can do this result gets steps divided by days. Woo! Okay, so right. Okay, so active days returns the number of active days. Now that I have this distinction between active days and days, I just don't know how well, I wonder if I can just do this, like, right, if I can just set, like, I mean, I could do this all in one line, right? Yeah, let's just do it all in one line. Let's just say return active days. But the code that I wrote wasn't wrong, it's just that now I can see, like, a pretty straightforward way to do it, right? Let's say I just say return active days. Done. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. Okay, I don't know how the active days is getting updated, but okay. And then add daily steps, which accumulates. Oh, so whenever I see that word accumulate, that means adds. Accumulates information about steps and readings taken once per day. Okay, so, right. So add daily steps. Okay, so this is too few steps to be considered active. Right. But a day has still passed. Okay, so right. So here for add daily steps, what I'm doing here is I need to increase my total number of steps, right, by however amount, right? So this dot steps plus equals steps, right? So I increase my total number of steps. And I also have to check to see whether or not, wait a second. I think I'm realizing my mistake here. Because how do we know? Wait, okay, and this is why I have to take my time and make sure that I understand what each part of this is doing. It says days with at least 10,000 steps are considered active. And then here, down here, it says this is too few steps to be considered active because 10,000 has been established as like that baseline for being active. So, okay. So, right, and okay, now it makes sense, okay. Okay, so this could still represent the number of steps, but this is like, there's like two variables for the active days, and there's two variables for the steps. This one for the steps is like, the steps, like, goal, right, steps goal get steps. And then I need another one to keep track of like how many actually steps I took. Steps taken. Good, okay. So now for the steps taken, right? And everything is starting to make sense right now because, right, if you create a StepTracker object, you're keeping track as you go along. I don't know if it makes sense to like input the number of steps like as soon as you create the object. I think it makes more sense to be like this, that steps taken starts off as 0. Okay. Whew. So we've got our steps goal, we've got our steps taken. Right. Okay, so it seems good so far. Let me just double check and make sure that things are looking good so far. So active days, I return the number of active days. Okay, average steps, okay. I'm looking at the days, not the active days, but just the number of days in general, okay, and I'm checking to see if that's 0. If so, I return 0.0. Otherwise, now I don't have a variable called steps anymore. I have a variable called steps taken. That makes sense in this case, right? If I'm trying to calculate the average steps that I've taken, I want to use steps taken. So if steps taken divided by, okay, not if. The result is the number of steps taken divided by the number of days. Okay. Now, for add daily steps. Okay, so now what I'm doing here for add daily steps, I'm adding to the steps taken. Okay. Oh, wait, I don't want to set it equal to steps because I'm accumulating. Remember, I'm adding. So I want to add to the steps that have already been there. So I'm going to say steps taken plus equals steps. Woohoo! Okay, so now what I need to do is once I have, did I close off this class? I did. I'm just gonna add this comment here, end class, just for my own notes, okay? You don't need to do this on the AP exam, add comments. I've actually heard that you shouldn't do that, and I guess it probably just makes more clutter for the people the AP readers to read, so, but I'm just doing this right now for my own sake, but on the exam I would not do that. All right, so so we've accumulated the number of steps taken, but, and this is really implied here, it's not obvious, right? If the number of steps taken has increased, and this is called add daily steps, that means that the number of days also is going to increase. This dot days plus equals 1. Or at least it makes most sense for the number of days to increase right here. Oh, how much battery do I have? 7%. Okay, let's keep going. Let's be faster, right? And if it also makes sense, right? Because it says this is the too few steps for the date to be considered active. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to check if the steps is greater than the steps goal. And if the steps is greater than the steps goal, then that means that the number of active days is equals 1. Woohoo! And it's a void method, so I don't need to return anything. Woohoo! Great. Okay. Right. I don't need to say that this steps taken. I just got into the habit of doing that. I don't need to do that. I can take that away. But it's not wrong if I do that. So I increase, for add daily steps, I increase the number of steps taken by the steps. I increase the number of days by 1, and then I check to see if I've reached my goal here. This is like a little fitness app here, keeping track of whether or not I have been true to my New Year's resolution of doing all my walking or not. Okay. Yes, and so with that, it looks like I've got everything. I've got my 3 methods: add daily steps, average steps, active days. Active days should take in no data, but return an int. Average steps should take in no data, but return a double. And add daily steps should take in 1 int and return nothing. Okay, but it does a lot of really good stuff here. I feel like there might be something that I'm missing. Some of you might be like, Miss Alice, there's something you're missing, but I just can't quite see what it is, right? If the number of steps is greater than the steps, maybe greater than or equal to, because it says at least. Okay, let's do that. If steps is greater than or equal to the steps goal, the number of active days increases by 1. Okay. I'm wondering if there should be an else statement here. And my battery's low. Should there be an else statement here? Well, I feel like it makes sense that active days just stays as it is, only if this is true. If the steps is greater than or equal to the goal, the active days increases. No matter what, the number of days should increase, no matter what, whether it's an active day or non-active day. And then steps taken. Okay, all right, and I think that is it. And I have my constructor. It matches this constructor call here, which only has 1 input, which is the number of steps goal, steps. Okay. Keep in mind that this is my parameter steps. I can't refer to steps anywhere else in my code. If I'm referring to steps anywhere else in my code, it's because I also have a parameter here called steps here. Okay, that is it.